Okay, good morning, everyone. Last week, we talked about a very important subject, how to share our story. We broke it down into essential elements of what makes a compelling story, why it's so important, how it connects us, literally, how our brainwaves sync between storyteller and listener. It's fascinating that research is being developed that shows there is synchronicity that takes place when stories are being shared. And that gives great value to the purpose and function of our stories. There are lots of stories that we tell in business, isn't it? There's our brand story, our business story, our company story, our product story, but our story is something that's really important to share too. And it's that helps people to connect. We've heard it said loads of times that people join us much more than they join the company. Yeah, so when people join Nikan, they're really partnering with us, the sponsor. And so we've got to recognize the value of that and therefore the importance of that storytelling experience. We've got things like the elevator pitch, but an elevator pitch, as important as it is, doesn't make someone go immediately, I want to partner with this person. An elevator pitch is designed to grab someone's attention. When you've got a limited moment of time, what can you say with impact that will make them want to connect with you at a later date? That's the elevator pitch purpose, isn't it? This story that we're talking about is what follows on from the elevator pitch. It's what we share with them once they get acquainted, and it gives us a chance to connect, to build relationships, to build rapport, and to have that synchronization take place where they listen in, they lean in, and they go, I like what I'm hearing, and I want to be a part of this. I mentioned the story that my sponsor told me back when I was in my 20s, when I first joined a network marketing company all those years ago as a distributor, and how he wasn't the hero of his own story. His sponsor was. And I think that was interesting as well, because the way he positioned it was really compelling to me. It was my sponsor is on this hero's journey. He wants to become the number one guy in the business, and he's really excited about this. He's got all of the success that precedes him, that predates our conversation here, which gives me confidence that I can succeed too, because he needs me to grow and achieve a certain leadership position in order for him to achieve his goals. So I'm going along for the ride, but Ben, I would love for you to come along for the ride with me. That was a really cool story, and it really dragged me in. And as a consequence, I joined and partnered up with him, and his need was to see me succeed in order for him to achieve his goals, in order for his sponsor to achieve his goals. It was all this wonderful, virtuous, mutual success and support structure that really got it quite compelling. So with that being said, we had a little bit of homework, didn't we, from last week, which was to write down and to craft a little bit our stories. And we're going to share them a little bit today. And in doing so, I want to establish first and foremost that this is a safe space for sharing. This isn't a place where we go, I'm going to share my mastered, perfectly crafted message. I don't expect today perfectly crafted, perfect messages. In fact, that was one of the points that I made in the call last week, wasn't it? Is that we shouldn't strive for perfection, because otherwise we'll never end up delivering our story. Yeah, it's something that we practice, we rehearse, we fine tune, we tweak, and it evolves as we evolve. Okay, so I'm going to just very briefly review some of the key points that we talked about last week, and then we'll get into sharing some of our stories. So please be prepared to unmute your line, share your story, and even if you get stuck as well, if you go, I'd like to share my story this week, but I got really stuck in crafting mine, help me. Yeah, we can go through that process together as well. Okay, so don't be afraid to share, be it your story or your challenges. Okay, because I think what's helpful in the sharing exercise today is being able to see everyone else's experience, not just in what they delivered, but also in their journey too. Some people find this a really difficult task. It is a tough thing to do, to get that story right, to get it fine-tuned, to get it on point. As we said last week, the real craft of storytelling is in the editing process. It's in the recrafting. You know, that's where most of the real great work takes place, not in the initial development, but in the redevelopment, of the story. So we identified that a great story has characters, setting, plot, conflict, and resolution. Those were the two things that really stood out to me last week, was the need for what is the problem that I'm trying to fix, and what's the resolution. We said to think about what you can turn into a story, okay, and to proceed that question with this one: what do people need? So we start out, because the reality is our life is made up of stories, isn't it? And everything, we make sense of the world through stories. That's how we give context to everything. That's how we give meaning to everything. That's how we give value to everything. It's in the stories that we tell each other and the stories we tell ourselves. So as we think about that, what needs do people have that I'm trying to meet and fulfill? And what in my life can I pull out, extract, and formulate into a story that will center around that in a meaningful way that will engage someone else? Find the hero. Who's the hero in the story? And like I said last week, it doesn't have to be you. For me, when I first joined as a distributor back in my 20s, a network marketing company, the story that got me in, the storyteller wasn't the hero of his own story. It was his sponsor. And I really like that. I think there's value in that. Add a source of conflict, like we talked about. Make it entertaining. Now that can be with humor. Not all of us are comedians, and learning to tell a story that's funny is actually much harder than it looks. Yeah, but it certainly needs to be emotive. Yeah, is there an emotional element to your story that will help people connect? Because when our hearts connect, our minds connect too. Yeah. So if you can connect heart to heart, not just mind to mind, that's what really, when those brainwaves synchronize between the storyteller and the listener, but what is it that's causing that synchronicity? I think it's the emotional connection that happens, because all stories that we love because of how they make us feel. Yeah. So how does your story make others feel? Allow your hero to change, of course. Keep it simple. That's a critical one. Keep it simple. And then finally, continue to refine and tweak it. So with that being said, is there anyone that wants to start us off in sharing their story that they've been working on over this past week? By all means, raise your hand, lift it up, let's have a look, and let's hear.
Ben, I'd like to start.
Yeah, go for it, Linda.
Okay. I'm in a place where I don't have my social media face on. So
Okay, no
here we
problem.
go. Can you hear me? You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, you know the saying, there's nothing better than an idea whose time has come? Well, while visiting my parents in Washington State several years ago, I was introduced to a great idea. This got my attention because I had left the corporate rat race and was actively looking for a different, more fulfilling way to earn a living from home. Thanks to my new friend, I found it. This life-changing idea and concept is something I had never heard before. It is called the wellness home. It is a healthy living environment for your home, whether you're in a regular house, a tiny house, a condo, apartment, office space, dorm, or even RV. Simply, it creates an environment of well-being and helps people make healthier choices daily. It's excellent for the entire family, including your fur babies, and great for your plants and flowers as well. The wellness home also checked off an important second box for me. Excellent home-based business for many people in the US, Canada, Latin America, and Europe. For the past nearly 16 years, my family, friends, and neighbors, the physical and financial income benefits. I became my dear parents' caregiver. By having this home business, I could more easily care for them, which has been a big blessing to our family, as we all love living in our wellness home.
Oh, Linda, your sound has just cut out. Oh, Linda, you there? I think we've lost Linda a little bit. Okay, Linda, hopefully you can hear me still. Let me give a little bit of feedback. You've put a lot of work into that story, which I can really clearly tell. So first off, big thank you for doing the homework, right? I think that was really good. I like that message where you said, have you ever heard of that idea, or that point of, when an idea has finally come, when it's arrived? I think that's a great opener. What I would like to suggest is you're giving a great product and business story, the reason why the product is valuable, but we want to hear more of why this is important to you. What is this doing for you? You were starting to get there, I think, as your sound went off when you talked about being your parents' carer. And I would almost be inclined to start with that. What is it? Why is it that this idea has come for you? Yeah. Why is that so important? So what I would like to suggest is pull in that story a little closer to the front. Yeah, because I'd like to hear a little bit more about, how has it been being your parents' carer? I immediately relate to that. My mother is in a care home right now with Alzheimer's. Yeah, and her health is declining pretty quickly right now. And I'm in a different country, but my sisters are needing to, care on a regular basis. Of course, they're not her daily carers because she's past that stage now. But that in itself triggers some emotions for me that makes me go, tell me more of what your experience is like. When you tell your story, this part of the story, that's where we start to find people like us that understand us, connect with us, relate to us, and we can start to create a community, and that's where the community comes in. Yeah. Oh, Linda, you're back. Can you hear us, Linda?
I apologize. My tablet betrayed me. How far did you get? How far did you hear me?
You started talking about how you were caring for your parents.
Oh, good. Okay, I'll start from there. I've timed this. It's about a minute and 46 seconds.
Okay, excellent. Yeah.
So we're almost at the end here. So I became my dear parents' caregiver. By having this home business, I could more easily care for them, which has been a big blessing to our family as we love living in our wellness home. Interested in knowing more, or do you know someone who you care about who may be interested? It would be an honor for me and a member of our team to talk with you and your family. When is a good day and time in the next 24 hours to talk for about 15 or 20 minutes by Zoom, phone, or in person?
Excellent.
That's it.
Yeah, excellent, Linda. So I'm not sure if you caught the little bit of feedback that I was giving before.
No, I was trying to get you back.
Okay, no worries. So the point that I was making, Linda, was I really like that element where you talk about being a carer for your parents, and especially what you just said there about how we all love our wellness home and being able to spend more time in it. So what I would be inclined to do would be to take that little bit that you finished on, which is a strong finish, but I'd be inclined to bring that to the front of the story, because what we've got here is a few moments within the storytelling process. Your first impressions will be what keep people's attention.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if I'd be inclined to share that story and maybe give a little bit more of the story around that. Why are you your parents' carer right now? How are they doing?
Okay.
How is that impacting you? What does that mean to you to be able to care for them? What does it mean for you to be able to care for them within a wellness home environment? What's been that experience? Has it been tough? Has it been difficult? Has it been, share a little bit of that, because it's that personal element that allows us to connect and form bonds. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Ben. I love that. I will do that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that feedback. I really do.
Worries.
I was very interested to hear how you felt. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, I would lead with that, because that's where we talked before about some of the elements that make a great story are the emotional impact. And that's where you want to have the emotional impact. Talking about great products that change lives, when we put it in that context, in reality, in brutal reality, there are lots of great products that change lives.
Sure.
Yeah. So what's going to make me connect here? It's that story right there. Yeah. A daughter caring for her parents, in their older years. Yeah.
Well, I'll get back to the drawing board because I can certainly revamp that and still keep it. I wanted to keep it under 2 minutes.
Yeah,
I
you did a
think when I
great job.
timed it, it was about 140 or so.
Yeah.
So I love that. I appreciate that feedback. Thank you very much.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure. Anyone else want to share their story? I think that's it. We're off to a great start here. Yes, Elaine. Awesome. I was hoping you would raise your hand.
Um, my mom was sick my whole life. She wasn't even supposed to have me. I was the last child, and when she very proudly told the doctor she was pregnant, he said, "Well, that's too bad. We'll do what we can." And so, being sick my whole life, she lived to 79, and the last 16 years of her life, she had at least one major surgery every year. And you know, anyone who's had one, it takes about a year to recuperate from a major surgery. And of course, she had all the drugs that were associated with this. Well, it turns out that she died in the same year that a company from Japan came to America. She never had the choice. Back then, they didn't understand about integrative or holistic health, natural, other ways to handle health. They just did everything with, like drugs and surgery. And so she never had a choice. And that's what I'm all about. I have found about this company. It's called Nikken, a Japanese-based company. And it helps me to have a choice, and it helps me to give other people the choice of being able to have self-care, the choice to not put strange substances in my body, but as much as possible to try and handle things through more natural methods. And so that's what I do, and that's what I would love to share with you. When have you got maybe 30 minutes that I can come over, or you can come over, or we can do something online, and I can show you what I found.
Oh, awesome. Wow, Elaine. See the power of the story right there. Yeah, I mean that genuinely, Elaine, and I've heard your story before, but I love listening to it every time.
I appreciate what you said about the hero doesn't have to be you, because in the past, all the elevator speeches were like about you, and I'm going, okay, well, this one's about my husband, this one's about my mother. It's like they're never about me. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's almost a very subtle, nuanced ABC moment. Yeah, why do we use these ABC strategies when we're sharing the business? It's that third-party validation principle, where in our culture, not in everyone's culture, but at least in ours, if we start our own business and we're doing something for ourselves, it's the tendency of maybe American culture, British culture, to go, yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, I'll trust someone else, but I know you, right? And we don't trust the people we know quite as well to succeed, right? And that's why we have that third party come in to say, I know someone great, yeah, and we point to that person, and they deliver the message, and they go, oh, that's got impact, yeah. And what we're doing here is almost something similar, where we're saying, there's a story that's really moved me, that's changed my life, that's impacted me. I'm not the hero of the story, though. This isn't my story, but I'm a part of it. Yeah. And I think there is power in that. It connects people really well. Because what you're doing there as well is you're sharing your feelings about your mum's health, what that meant to you, and what choices that gave you as a consequence of getting informed. Yeah, and I think that was a really powerful story. I want to just jump back to Linda for a second and say, Linda, do you see what happens when you tell that story up front? Notice the way that Elaine really made it personal, that storytelling. Yes. Yeah, and
oh, it was wonderful.
Yeah, it really makes a difference, doesn't it? So what I would suggest, and this is a separate skill, and we can practice this on another occasion as well, if you wish to keep this kind of this subject going, because I think it's a great subject, and it's great to have these classes where we can practice. Is one thing that I really like about what Elaine did is it just came from her heart. Yeah. So what I would suggest is when we craft our stories, we want to get it to a point where maybe we just write down bullet points, yeah, to keep us on track. But in doing so, when we share the story, it comes from here, from the heart, versus from a point of memorization.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe we want to evolve our storytelling preparation to a point where the story is crafted. Maybe it's rehearsed a little bit. And I think that's an important part of the process. But then as we get more rehearsed and better at telling it, then we start to dilute it down to bullet points so that we can then start to tell the story from the heart. Yeah.
Yes.
Because what we want to do is connect heart to heart there. I really like that story. What I would suggest, Elaine, as a little bit of constructive feedback for your story, is at the end, and of course, this is a role play scenario, right? So in this role play scenario, you extended an invitation for a visit, for a follow-up and what have you, which is great. In a story like that, I'd be inclined at the end, rather than to invite someone to hear more, I'd be inclined to I'd be inclined to ask them questions to understand how they feel. Yeah. So after sharing something like that, what I'd be inclined to do is say, yeah, and I have just been so grateful that I've had this opportunity, understanding my mother's health dynamics and the challenges that I saw her go through, to be able to be in a position to learn that there are other choices. Now, as I shared that story with you, were there any moments in your life that came to mind that made you go, I'm glad I'm more informed, or I'd like to be more informed? Was there anything there that resonated or connected with you? I'd be inclined to ask some questions there to understand what are they thinking or feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That's nice.
Yeah. I remember when I first joined Amway, and one of the first visits that I had with one of their field leaders was an in-home meeting. And I drove for a couple of hours to meet him on the motorway at a services. We jumped in his car, we drove off to this appointment, and he proceeded to give the presentation for the prospect that was that the meeting was for. And essentially what he did was he said, okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to talk and give context to what we're all about here. You're going to listen, and then at the end you can ask some questions. And then he proceeded to talk for an hour, right? And I was like, man, what am I witnessing here, right? And the challenge that we came across, that I observed, was he didn't take the time to ask questions. We might be telling stories, but understand our objective. What's our purpose in telling the story? Is to get that connection happening, that emotional connection, where we get on the same page, where we understand each other and see mutual value in what we're doing. So as a part of the storytelling process, we've got to be prepared at the end to ask some questions, you know, or look for, and maybe this becomes the next evolutionary step in the role play scenario. You know, if I was telling my story to Yoko right now, you know, when I'd tell her something, and if she kind of nodded her head, I'd want to look for those cues and say, oh, you know, Yoko, it sounds like this piece of the story is kind of connecting here. Share your thoughts. What are you thinking? Yeah, and just, it's a real simple question. What are you thinking? What are you feeling right now? And she might just go, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm just feeling for your mum, you know, and what your mum went through. Or she might say, you know what, I'm just really relating to this because my mum was really sick, you know, as well, and it just caused a lot of pain. Or yeah, I've been caring for my parents like you have, Linda, and it's just not easy. I find it really hard. I go, yeah, I'm with you. It's not easy, but would you like it to be a little bit more manageable? What would that mean to you to have some tools that you could use, some resources to make that a little better, you know, to make it more enjoyable for all? You know, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're on a joint quest, a joint mission together. Yeah, and that becomes really exciting. Okay, so a couple of points of feedback as we look at this collectively. Start with impact. Start with the emotional element of the story first. That is important because it's all about making good first impressions in the story too, to engage them and to retain their attention. What we're also suggesting is get to the point where you can share it heart to heart versus mind to mind. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we're able to ask some questions, connect, understand, what are you thinking, feeling? We want to look for, as we're talking to them, the body language signals and cues that they're giving as they respond to your storytelling that give you an indicator that they're getting pulled in, and at what points. Why is this element of the story resonating with you right now? Let's talk about this a little bit. Okay, so, and then of course, ask the questions to really make it an us thing, make it conversational. And it becomes conversational when we are talking together. So you want to be able to pull them into that storytelling experience so that it's not a monologue. Yeah, and that's the interesting element. We're telling our story, but at the same time, we don't want it to be a long-winded monologue. Yeah, Elaine.
You said this follows on what you said, because it was something you told me earlier and I had never thought of it. I brought a lady over here, a neighbor. We worked together in music all the time. I mean, I've known this lady for 30 years. And she and she was not here for her. She was here to learn about something for her son, who has some really serious issues. So I just assumed that the connection was there and that she would be interested. It was the funniest demonstration. She came in and she looked at my house. I have it all decorated up for every single month. Right now, I've got tons of St. Patrick's stuff all over. She came in and she looked around. She said, "Oh, your house is decorated so cute." And then she sat down and it was like her eyes were glazed. The whole time I'm showing her, 15 or 20 minutes, and I'm showing her this stuff. She was like not even looking at me. And then when she stood up to leave, her face lightened up again and she said, "Oh, your house is so pretty." She hadn't seen a thing of what I said. And it never occurred to me, Ben, until you told me, because I was seeing her body language. I saw her eyes just glazed over. And Ben told me to say, "You seem like you're really uncomfortable right now." Or "You seem like this is all out of your comfort zone." I had never thought to say that to anybody. So that follows up with what you're saying, to really watch. That would have really helped her if I had said that, rather than me excited showing her the water and then showing her a muscle test. And, and I'm thinking that those things are going to connect with her, and I needed to connect with her.
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared that experience, because that's a great story for all of us to remember. Yeah, it's very easy for us, especially if we've gone through this process, where we're saying, okay, I need to prepare my story, I need to get my message right, and we rehearse it, we practice it, and we're like, okay, now's our moment for delivery, now I'm going to do this. And then we start to tell our story and we get preoccupied on the wrong thing. As a consequence of the rehearsal, the practice, and the naturally good desires to do well, we end up focusing on us versus the person. Yeah. And I remember when I was a trainer many years ago, we were taught, we teach people, not lessons. We teach people, not lessons. And we always had this mantra going into every lesson, that we prepare and then we prepare to unprepare. Meaning you get your message ready, but we're teaching people, not lessons. So I've got it prepared. And then as I go in, if a dynamic arises, like Elaine mentioned, where the person sits down and they go, "Oh, I'm not looking too comfortable," or "I'll just wait till this passes," that you address that. And you, "Oh, I'm sorry, is this, am I making you uncomfortable here as we talk about this?" Yeah, and they go, "Oh yeah, no, well, yeah, I'm happy for you doing this, but I just don't think it's my cup of tea." Okay, well, hey, look, I'm not here to put pressure on you, right? If you're immediately feeling uncomfortable, let's talk about that, right? And let's change the subject a little bit, right? It's important that we teach people, not lessons. Yeah. And so as we rehearse, as we practice, remember that we prepare, and that's where we can apply, I call it like the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. I can teach well if I'm prepared, but I teach better if I'm prepared to unprepare, and then allow my heart to connect with their heart, because my objective isn't to simply transfer information. My objective is to make an emotional connection. Yeah. And so that means I've got to look for that body language. I've got to look at their eyes. I've got to see what they're saying, listen to what they're doing, and look at what they're not doing so that I can respond accordingly. And that makes all the difference, because then we start to teach people, we make those heart-to-heart connections, and that's where those bonds form and those future opportunities arise, be it immediately with immediate follow-up opportunities, or maybe down the road at a time when they are ready to fully engage and hear the message. Yoko, you unmuted your line. You want to say something?
And it's so true, because that's exactly what I did, knowing me talking to my sons when I started the business, and I just completely was talking and not feeling. And so now, of course, they backed off, and now I understand and the training part of this. In other words, coming from corporate America, everything is information, you push it there. But you come from a different business now, which I love, but now I'm beginning to understand how to convey that love. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. It's so common. In our natural desire to do good, we railroad people. Yeah, and we regurgitate as much information as we can to show our enthusiasm, to assure them that we're informed and that we're knowledgeable, to let them know our excitement. But in all of that process, we're not taking the time to understand who they are and what their needs are. Yeah. I like that what Mrs. Kramer says, we train dogs, we teach people. I like it. Yeah. So I think that's really important. So let's maybe finish today on this point, that we teach people, not lessons, that we prepare, and then we prepare to unprepare, that our objective is to make those emotional connections, that as we are telling our stories, we also want to be watching and listening, not just with our ears at what they say, but listening with our eyes, at what they are doing or not doing, so that we can respond and adjust the pace of our message or our message entirely according to their reaction, so that we can give them the best way of experiencing what we have to offer. Again, the purpose in sharing the story is to help meet one of their needs. What are they struggling with? What is their challenge? And we want to make a connection so that they understand that we're going, I get you. Yeah, that's what they want to hear in the story. We get each other. And as soon as they get that sense of we get each other, you're on the right path. You're moving in the right direction. That's what we want to have. We get each other. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful. I hope the storytelling and the practice has been worthwhile. Again, shoot me a note if you want to have the time to go over this one-on-one, or if you'd like to have the time to rehearse it in a group setting like we've done today. Let me know. We can do another session like this where we can do some practice and get some feedback and do some re-practice as well, because this type of activity, I think, where we're doing together, rehearsing together, is really, really helpful. So thank you all very much. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thank you, Ben. This was very helpful. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you. And thank you for doing all the prep. See ya.